So, hello and welcome to Emotional Intelligence in an AI World. I'm Heather Mylan-Mains. I am a business analysis professional. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm not sure if I know anyone or have met anyone on the call. Um, Certainly welcome to connect with you after this for sure. So, I have consulted in many different companies, worked in different roles and different things. I've been an instructor for business analysis. I do some presentations. I volunteered for IIBA. Hopefully, all of you are aware of IIBA and the professional organization for business analysis. Most recently, I was a director on the board of directors. I just finished 8 years in that volunteer role. So I'm pretty passionate about this community and giving back and sharing what I've learned in my journey and learning from everyone else in their journeys. As a business analysis professional, I'm probably one of the least technical business analysis professionals you'll find. My background is actually in accounting, and I was told by a developer, "Hey, you're probably a business analysis person." I'm like, "What is that?" And that started my journey to understand and work in this space. So I don't come with a technical background. I am very much focused on the people and interactions, and I focus on process and data rules and all the things that are important, probably more so on the soft skills. And I would say I've been given feedback in my own career that my soft skills are much more marketable and valuable than anything technical. And I sort of joke now as I think about AI, I feel very validated that I never learned SQL because that's what AI can do. So that's a bit of a joke for myself, but it is true. I am a person who knows where my lane is, and I like to stay in that lane. And I focused on making sure I understand the people. And emotional intelligence is such a key skill and important thing. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking today about emotional intelligence and what that is and how we work on that, and then how that intersects and give some examples about how it's important to consider that as we move into artificial intelligence. So if you have questions at any point, please go ahead and ask them. Laura, I'm going to ask you because I can't see the chat. I'm going to ask you to just, when a question comes up, go ahead and, at a natural point, interrupt me and let's address the question then. There are points in this presentation that I'm going to ask for some interaction. So I'm going to hope that you will be willing to interact in the chat, and we can have a little bit of a conversation. And yeah, any questions, comments, feel free to share because this is a learning opportunity for all of us, certainly not just for me. So, we're living in a time where this intersection of people and technology is just changing so fast. If I think about myself in my own life, there are some things that really cause me to pause. For example, when I was in grade school and I had friends move away, I wrote a letter on pencil and paper, put it in an envelope with a stamp, and I mailed it. And I waited the 7 or 10 days that it would take to get a reply. So it was okay to wait and pause. Today, if I text someone and I don't have a response in an hour, I worry what's happened to them. What a significant change in how we communicate and work that is. Or I get extra freaked out when I realize that I had children before the internet existed. So when I was raising my children and there was a concern in the middle of the night, I actually had a phone with a cord on the wall, and I didn't call someone after 10 o'clock unless it was absolutely critical or someone was dead. That meant I had to do a lot of problem solving on my own with my resources in hand, which was encyclopedias or books or different things. Today's parents, have access to information 24/7 to investigate what that cough might mean. And in some cases, the information is so scary, they're going to jump into conclusions and being worried about something, which, back in my day, be like, well, we'll just let it pass. So there's a beauty in simplicity and a beauty in complexity, and it's just rapidly changing. So now we're introducing artificial intelligence to mimic many things with humans and tasks that we had done in the past. And so this intersection is super interesting to consider. But I'm glad to hear the feedback from people in the audience that, part of their interest is that this doesn't get enough attention. And I'm going to remind us all that, although the technology has changed and people have changed to some extent, we're still human beings. And as such, we need to consider the human element in our work and everything that we do. I often say that business analysis is the people business, and we better be great at understanding people. Part of emotional intelligence that we're going to talk about is making sure that we can understand ourselves as people before we delve into trying to understand other people. And I'll also say things like, with my name, some fun with alliteration is Heather the human needs to do this. We should probably consider how Heather the human is going to feel about this or how she's actually going to do it. So as we introduce artificial intelligence in different processes, replace different capabilities with these tools, we need to be very aware of the human beings that are guiding and directing whatever that AI is. Because a computer never makes decisions on their own. I guarantee you, someone has helped that computer on their journey to try to solve problems and make things work. So human beings, pretty darn important. So emotional intelligence has been around as a topic for quite some time. In fact, thousands of years. Plato has been quoted as saying, all learning has an emotional base. So this concept of emotions in human beings is not anything new. So if we think about what emotional intelligence is, it really is the ability to manage emotions and understand our own emotions and understand emotions of other people. Well, you might be thinking, that shouldn't be a problem because, well, I'm a human being. And so therefore, I get other people, right? We were in person, I would expect some laughter because right now, I bet all of you are thinking the same thing that I'm doing. Well, there is nothing easy about understanding people. Thinking about people, this is a snapshot into my life. So many of you are going to have some of the similar experiences that I have. I've been a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a mother, I'm an aunt. In fact, I'm a great aunt. Scary that I could almost be a great great aunt. People in my family got started early in life. I've been a wife. I'm a widow. Been a caregiver to children, caregiver to friends, caregiver to aging parents. I'm a friend. I've been a teacher. I'm a worker, and I am complex. All of those things have impacted me and my emotions and how I feel about everything. And you have a similar complexity, not the same. Even the people that I've had these shared experiences with, we're going to have different experiences. So people are complex. We are a mixture of so many things. Every conversation, every experience, we bring a list of things, our successes, our failures, the language that we speak. Some people on this call might speak multiple languages. And that's things mean different things in different cultures. We have a combination of genetics that impact who we are, physical attributes. We have our prejudices that we've brought to us, our biases, our fears. All these things come together to create who we are. And it is a vast, complex nature of human being and human behavior. And there are volumes and volumes of books and resources about understanding people and how they intersect and how they react. So we're going to cover just a few pieces. I'm going to share with you some things that have been helpful to me to understand myself, understand other people, as we explore this topic of emotional intelligence. So let's talk about some of the foundations of emotional intelligence. There is a movie. Something about me is I actually am a huge Disney fan. I'm actually more of an amusement park fan, but Disney happens to be a fabulous amusement park as well. There is a movie that you might be aware of called Inside Out. You may have seen it. There's actually a new version of that came out this summer. In this movie, there's a young girl pictured on the screen. Her name is Riley. And inside of Riley, just like inside each one of us, there are these emotions. And these emotions are joy. She's the one with the blue hair. I'm guessing you can guess which one's anger. Red flames of hair. Sadness, she's blue and has some tears. Fear, purple, quite scared, kind of cowering. And then we've got one of the funniest ones, and that is disgust. She is absolutely very clear about what is disgusting to Riley. They work together to keep Riley safe. The movie depicts her as a young child, as she's growing up and she's experiencing stranger danger, that's fear. So She cries. She giggles when she's happy. She cries when she's angry or not happy, especially at dinner time. And then my favorite is, when disgust is presented with broccoli, she makes sure to take over and throw that broccoli clear across the room. So these are the same emotions that happen for each one of us. We are having battles within us at any given situation. And in the movie, Riley is experiencing a traumatic change. She and her family have to move from the environment that she is used to, that she knows and loves. She's 11, pretty critical age, right before junior high. So she has to find new friends and experience new things. Her parents are going through some hard times as they're adjusting to a new job and a new house, new city, all these things. And as she goes through this, the movie shows how these emotions work together to keep her safe and to help allow her to feel so that she can, relieve her stress and tension, that kind of thing. One of the things I really like about this particular movie is you'll notice the character Joy, she has blue hair, which is representative of sadness, and she has kind of a yellowish green body, because in reality, we cannot feel joy without having first experienced some sadness. And each of us in our life has had these experiences. There are hundreds of things that we encounter in our lives as we grow up, as we work in our offices, as we work with our teams. So we've got this combination of all these emotions going on, and we need to find things. You know, I wish it were as easy as what this movie depicts, but in fact, there's more. But wait, there's more. Robert Plucknick's Wheel of Emotions, you can see how complex this is as we consider how we feel about things and how we interact. This model introduces 8 primary emotions, so a few more than the movie Inside Out. We've got joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, and anticipation. And those are shown inside the wheel. You can see those listed there. You're going to see some gradients of these emotions. So one of the things that's interesting is that each of our emotions has a polar opposite. So at the top of the chart, you'll see joy in yellow, and you'll see sadness in blue. So joy is the opposite of sadness. So in our physiology, when we feel joy, we want to connect. We want to be experiencing connection with someone else, with something. But if we are sad, the tendency is to withdraw. This could show up as silence for some people. It could be literally physically needing a space because I'm too sad to deal with it. Lots of things can show up that way. Fear in the green is the opposite of anger, shown in the red. So physiology for that is when I'm afraid, I'm going to get small. I'm going to retreat. You can see that if you're in a meeting with people and they're all of a sudden afraid of what's been shared or said, you can see their body language change. They might actually retreat into their chair. They could, look down, look away. You're going to see that getting small reaction. Or if you're angry, we get loud and big, and you've seen that too. You've seen people maybe stand up if you're in person. You see their or hear their voice get raised and more passionate. So those are some actions and reactions to fear and anger. Anticipation is the opposite of surprise. So anticipation is shown in the orange and surprise in the blue. When we are anticipating and looking forward to something, we might examine it closely, we might study it, we might research it. But when we're surprised, we're gonna actually jump up. I'm guessing some of you have been the subject of a surprise that you weren't expecting, or maybe afraid. My kids used to sort of sneak up on me and they would startle me, and I would jump back in surprise. So surprise is that physical reaction when we feel surprise. Disgust, shown in the purple, is the opposite of trust. So if we are disgusted by something, we're going to reject it. I told you in the movie Inside Out, Riley is a toddler who's presented with broccoli, is so disgusted by it, she takes it off her food tray and throws it across the room. We hopefully, and as adults don't react that violently. We learn how to manage that a little bit differently, but we are still, you might, reject an idea, or we're just so disgusted at the thought of that change. We don't want anything to do with it. If we're trusting and we're open to it, we're going to embrace it. We're going to welcome it. We're going to add to an idea and those kinds of things. So these emotions in this slide are also can be shown with intensity. So if you look at the chart, we've got our 8 primary emotions, but as I get closer into the circle, you can see that the emotions become more intense. Fear becomes terror. Joy becomes ecstasy. Sadness becomes grief. Disgust, loathing, anger, rage. Anticipant, vigilance. Trust is admiration. Surprise becomes amazement. So that feeling of intensity is shown there. Now, also on the outside of this circle, you can see that there's like a sub feeling. So joy starts with serenity. We go from serenity to feeling joyful to feeling ecstasy. We accept an idea, then we trust an idea, then we admire it. So there's an elevation in these fields. You'll see some that don't have any colors. And those are a combination of feelings. So joy and trust combine to make love. Joy and anticipation are optimism. So we've got this complex look at all these different emotions and different things that we can feel and understand, which leads to the complexity of the human condition. Now, how many of you can relate to some of these emotions in your own life? How many of you have had situations where you're annoyed with someone, something, that turns to anger, and then you go full on rage? You can certainly react in the chat if you'd like to share that. Same thing with I'm distracted, then I'm surprised, then I'm amazed. All these things are part of the human condition, and each of us can have these in any given experience. And the trick is, of course, because of the complexity of who we are, we're not going to experience all the same things. What brings me joy is not going to bring you joy. Adds to the fun of understanding people. So understanding emotions is the first part of emotional intelligence. Next, once we understand our emotions, we need to think about and be self-aware. So self-awareness is, first of all, what are those emotions? What am I feeling? But also, who am I? Who am I really? So one of the things that I have noticed in my own self-awareness is that I don't necessarily take feedback very well. In fact, I've made it, I do some presentations and I've done some teaching and training on feedback as I've learned how to manage this better. So if I get an instant message from my boss at work, and maybe some of you can relate to this too, and the instant message says, we need to talk. Okay, Heather's brain goes right away to, okay, I've done something bad. People don't like me. I'm not a good worker. I am so getting fired. I just don't handle that well. And I can become very emotional very quickly. And I have no basis for any of that to be true. In fact, I've never been fired. I have not had that experience. And I have never had someone discuss something with me in such a way that it's so critical and harmful that I have any reason to feel that. But that's where my brain goes and my emotions of the situation. So I've worked on being self-aware and trying to say, okay, really, Heather, none of that's true. You don't have enough information. You don't have enough context. You have no idea why your boss wants to talk to you. So making sure that I'm aware of that these are just feelings. They're not facts. They're just something that I'm feeling and that I'm aware of. Every single person that you're dealing with in your work could have those same sort of reactions. They could not be very self-aware, and they could be letting their emotions take over and even guide their decisions, which is making decisions from an emotional perspective is a very poor choice. We don't tend to make the best decisions when we're using emotions. So thinking about this, we can make sure that we're monitoring ourselves, trying to figure it out. Some of you may have heard of the acronym, and it's HALT, HALT. This comes up a lot when we're parenting and our children are not able to understand their emotions and they're behaving in different ways. Well, the H is, am I hungry? So have I had enough food or water? Maybe not. A is angry. Am I angry about something? Um, is there something that's upsetting me? Maybe something that's happened that's really not related to anything that's going on, but it's bringing back past memories or past traumas or times I've been criticized that didn't feel good. So I'm angry then. L is lonely. Am I feeling disconnected? Am I not having a connection with the people on my team, the people in my life? Is there some sort of a rift going on in one of my relationships that it's causing me to feel lonely? And the T is tired. I kind of, as I've become more wise in my journey in life, I feel like the success in life is basically drinking enough water, stretching, and getting enough sleep. Those are my keys to life. Take it for what you like as wisdom. I think if you can make sure you're drinking enough water, make sure you get enough sleep to let your brains repair from the day's activities, and you make sure you're stretching your muscles to be flexible, you're going to be much happier as life goes on. So, self awareness, check yourself. At this moment, I'm having all these emotions and these feelings. Wait a minute. Do I need a snack? Do I need to take some deep breaths because I'm angry about something? Do I need to resolve something in a relationship that I've left unresolved? Do I need to feel connected with someone? Do I need to reach out and phone a friend and just have that connection? Or do I simply need a nap? And do I need to take a break from whatever I'm doing so that I can be rested and ready to have this conversation? Sometimes another thing you can track about self awareness is deep breathing. There is so much science and so much power in just pausing and taking some deep breaths. You may have heard about the 4-7-8 method. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, slowly exhale for 8 seconds. If you find yourself in a situation where your emotions are taking over, take a pause, do some deep breathing, focus on self awareness. Maybe you need to talk to a friend. So, self awareness is part of emotional intelligence. Next, self regulation. So, we know our emotions, we're kind of aware of what's going on. Now we need to regulate ourselves. I love this little book. If you have not read it, I would highly recommend it. It's a short read. It's a Toltec Indian wisdom book, and it talks about 4 agreements that we make with ourselves. So oh, somebody loves it. Thank you. I think these are so key in helping us be happier with ourselves, be kind to ourselves, as well as being aware for other people, and how really most of our interactions with other people have almost nothing to do with us. It's all about each of us and our own emotions. So if you think about
Heather,
this, oh, go ahead.
sorry, I'm just noticing there's a couple questions that
Good.
I wanted to insert here.
Yes.
Um, Nawaz, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Please correct me if I'm not. But the question is ego, how much part it plays in diminishing your ability of self-awareness. That's the first one, and then I have a
Okay.
couple more, but I'll let you respond to that question about ego.
Okay. So ego is such an interesting concept, isn't it? I would also equate that to with pride, being so focused on yourself that you only want to be successful. Your ego, you're doing something out of you want the praise, you want the credit. When we let our egos take over, we are going to diminish our ability to think of anyone else. We can only think of ourselves. So part of emotional intelligence is being aware of our own emotions. So if I'm feeling like I'm not getting enough recognition for something and I need to be recognized because of my ego, I need to probably check that at the door and start to look at say, well, why am I feeling this way? What is it? What's going on in my life where I'm not feeling satisfied? And we could delve into that. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is another tool we have to understand: am I not feeling good or safe in my life? So therefore, my ego is driving my decisions. Being able to think about other people, and we're going to talk in just a little bit about empathy. That is sort of the antithesis of ego. So I do think ego is a. It's important to be confident, and it's important to know that you're capable. I'm kind of like for me, when I mentioned the feedback situation, I'm only thinking about, well, I'm just a failure, even though I do have a good sense of self. Your ego can counteract that and think, well, I'm amazing. No one could ever have a problem with me. And that's going to actually interfere in your ability to have a relationship with another human being or to work on a team. So egos are really something you have to check and manage. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, great. And then Chris is asking, what ways can personality profiles be used to strengthen EI in different contexts, i.e., family, work, or social groups?
Yes. Oh, and there's so much in this topic to cover. I didn't go into personality types, although personality types are very much part of what can be part of who we are and how we work with others. Certainly, Myers-Briggs is a very common one. Knowing who you are and how you can interact with other people's personalities is an important one. Are you introverted versus extroverted? Do you move to judgment? All those different kinds of things. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go into all of that, but I do think that is a component that we can add to this as a concept to be aware of what your personality type is and how you work with other people could be a good component of emotional intelligence. So good ads, good questions. Thanks. Excellent. Thanks for asking those. So as it relates to all of that, who you are and how you can self-regulate, these 4 agreements will work with any of that. The author offers these agreements that we make with ourselves. So we agree, number 1, to be impeccable with your word. Now, what that means is that you do what you say, so you follow through with your actions. You speak kindly. Now, there are times where we need to be critical because we want to give feedback to help someone get better, but we should never criticize. That's where ego gets involved. I want to be better than you, so I'm going to criticize you. Uh, Being impeccable with your word is that you put good things into the universe. You are able to be optimistic, to be positive, and making sure that you are impeccable with your word, because words do matter. That nursery rhyme or whatever, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Who came up with that? I think words hurt more than a good punch to the face. Personally, I think I've ruminated on things that have been said to me, and it's really hard. Which leads to the second agreement that you make with yourself, and that is you don't take anything personally. This can be very, very hard, but I want you to consider some of the things that have been said to you or that you've interacted with when someone says something. Most likely that those words are reflecting their own inability to manage their emotions. So if someone is projecting something negative to you, it's because they're not feeling secure and safe in themselves. And they want to try to criticize you or make you feel differently or badly. So truly just don't take things personally. My mom taught me something invaluable. And she said this: no one is worthless in this life. They can always be a bad example. Think about that for a minute. Think about the people that you've received an email from or a text from, and it is just absolutely biting. It is negative, it is critical, it is just, you read it and you think, oh my gosh. When I get that kind of communication, because I've made these agreements with myself, because I followed my mom's advice, I think I never want to make anyone else feel the way I'm feeling right now. And that's valuable because then I can check my behavior and treat others people better. So don't take things personally. It's hard, 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 but it will be so much better off. Thirdly, don't make assumptions. I think many of us know that word is a tricky one. I think assumptions are really important, but they should be validated. So in my example with the feedback story I told, I make all kinds of assumptions that the reason someone wants to talk to me is because they want to fire me. That is not valid. So try not to make assumptions. Assume positive intent. If someone is sharing something with you, hopefully you can think, well, they're trying to help in some way, and give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're dealing with something really hard in their life. So don't make assumptions. And the fourth agreement you make with yourself is, just do your best. Now, our best looks different on different days, depending on what we have going on in our life and how we're coping with the challenges that we face personally, professionally. Just always do your best. And when you've done your best, there's not much more else you can do, right? So What do you think about these agreements? I got a heart at the beginning, so I'm guessing someone's aware of this book. What are your thoughts on these agreements and the concept of self-regulation? Any feedback on this? Have you tried them? The Another piece of advice I got, and I truly love this too, going back to do an email or conversation you get that's just biting and critical and just judgmental and all the different words you can think of. I had someone once say when he gets those kind of emails, he's like, just glad I could be there for you. You must be having a rough day, and don't respond. Hopefully, some of you have gotten to the point where you don't respond either, because when someone's in that space, their emotions are taking control and they're not able to have a rational conversation. So there's really no point in engaging in some sort of connection there, right? Okay. Well, hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully you got some insight into that in the four agreements. So now that we are aware of emotions, we are aware of, we're building our foundation. If we were building a emotional intelligent house, we're working up our beams, and maybe we're getting to the roof almost. Got our pieces and parts. Empathy. Oh my goodness. I personally believe that empathy is the key to human relationships. And empathy is often misunderstood. So when we think about our ability to handle our emotions, to be aware of other people's emotions, to self-regulate and be self-aware, now we need to start reaching into thinking about other people's emotions. So how do we understand other people's thoughts and feelings? Remember the slide I showed with all the different experiences, and I shared a little bit about myself and all the different roles I've had? We are a mix of all these things. So thinking about empathy, we can't ever 100% understand what someone is going through. But it is an important aspect of making sure that we can sit with someone, we can be with them when they're feeling something. And I would offer that in our work today as business analysis professionals, there is not one thing I'm ever involved in that isn't some sort of a change where a person is going to have an emotional response. Even if it's as simple as changing a field label, that's something different for someone. And each person is going to react to it differently. There could be some significant changes. I'm working on an effort right now in my full-time job where we're looking at processes and the famous cost reduction. Well, if any of you are aware of how you reduce cost, how is it? Generally speaking, it's reducing overhead of people. That is a very emotional experience. Requires a lot of empathy, requires a lot of care to even start to understand how we can do that. So it is so important to have empathy. How do I acquire empathy? Well, first of all, I better check my ego at the door. I think that relates to that ego question. Brene Brown is a fantastic author. And if you have not read or listened to any of her work, I would highly recommend tapping into some of that. She offers this perspective on empathy. Empathy fuels connection, and sympathy drives disconnection. We often are sympathizing with someone, which is kind of like, I feel sorry for you. That is disconnecting. That is not helpful. Whereas empathy is feeling human connection. So empathy is feeling with people, and it's a choice because we often have to go to a part of our life that was painful and hard. It's a vulnerable choice. This particular picture is me holding my mom's hand. Now, my mom is in the late stages of dementia in this picture. So I had heard people talk about, and I do this, I am a very empathetic person here. I've heard people talk about taking care of aging parents. And a lot of us in our workplace are going to be in this space. Until I had the experience of sitting with her and watching her fade away, I didn't really understand. I have a friend whose mom, and my mom passed, it's going to be 3 years ago, coming up this fall. The reason why this is so important, it was so insightful to me, is because I'm like, I get it. I get what you're going through. I get how hard this is. So if you have people that you're working with or friends who are going through this, it is an incredibly difficult situation. And the empathy comes with not saying, well, why don't you do this? Or, well, at least you had some good years with her or with your dad. At least don't ever say at least. That is a very limiting and disconnecting phrase with people. As we move to understand and have empathy, we have experiences where we can say, you know, that seems really hard. Or I hate it when that happened to me, or I hate it when I went through that. Just being willing to not, also don't share your own story. So I go and visit I go and visit my friend's mom with her in her care center. And I can see how hard it is for my friend because she's so emotionally connected, where I can sit with her mom and I can hear her repeat things 5 or 6 times. And I can just say, oh, that's so great. And I can say that's so great 5 times. And I'm not as emotionally connected, but I can be empathetic in that space for her and just say, I get it. I know how hard it is. So we should practice active listening if someone is having a hard time. And there are, with the pandemic, we had separations of family. As a matter of fact, for my family, we could not put my mom in a care center during the pandemic. And so my siblings and I took turns trying to take care of her. I'm an analyst, for heaven's sakes. How empathetic am I dealing with someone who needs really tender care? I'm more like, Mom, we got to get this done today. This is how we're doing it. My sister, who's a nurse, is like, oh, Mom, how are you? It's a very different experience. But learning from another person's perspective is a really important part of empathy. So if you are able, as you work with people, to have empathy, your emotional intelligence ability is going to skyrocket. Once you can start to realize we're all having hard experiences and develop empathy, that's going to be a game changer for you in your relationship with people. So
You're
another
getting
part,
some,
oh,
Heather,
oh,
getting
good.
some great. I just wanted to share, getting some great comments
Oh, good.
and certainly a lot of hearts. And I'm not sure if you're able to see all the chats, but
I can't.
folks are appreciating that you're sharing this, and you know,
Yeah. Good.
so Chris is saying he was sharing walking his father through the last stages of his life was both difficult and beautiful,
Yes.
and just being present with him was a privilege and honor. Bless you for your vulnerability and
Oh,
maturity. So there's a lot of love
sweet.
coming at you, Heather, and a lot of
Oh,
appreciation for you. Just,
oh, that's sweet.
being able to model the emotions as they come up,
Yes.
and just be present with them as they come up. So I just wanted to
Yes.
share that in case you didn't see it.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet. It's funny. There are a couple different times and topics, and I have practiced this many times. And let me tell you, this is the first time that the tears came because I'm with other people. When I'm just by myself, I can go through it and say yada yada yada. But it's important that we can be vulnerable. So I think being vulnerable is a part of emotional intelligence too. There can be a lot of, and actually Brene Brown is a shame researcher by background, so she researched shame, and she's attributed that a lot to empathy and being vulnerable. And so I thank you for that. Yes, please be vulnerable with each other. Please give each other the benefit of the doubt, because you never know what someone's going through, for sure. So another component of emotional intelligence is motivation. So we as people, as we become more emotionally intelligent, we can set goals, we can achieve goals, and we can motivate others. So that's part of it, especially if you think about your work in business analysis. Everything that we're doing involves change, and it's hard. It's hard to change. It's hard to motivate people. So making sure that we can be encouraging is an important part of emotional intelligence. How do we do this? Well, oddly enough, I've met some business analysis professionals and some other people in life that just don't like other people. I would offer that if you don't like other people, you're probably in the wrong profession, because we are all about people and we have to have some care and concern about the people we're working with to be successful. We can also be optimistic. Goes back to that concept of, being impeccable with our word. When I go to meetings and dealing with complex topics, I'm going to smile, I'm going to laugh, and it's like, oh my gosh, we have so many great opportunities today. Even though inside me I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not sure that we can do this. I'm going to be that cheerleader and I'm going to be optimistic to help us get us done. Thinking about that, lastly, this slide is intended for humor. I am the mother of 2 sons, and I guarantee you we do not communicate the same, and we have a lot of complexity in how we see things. I love The ass. Thank you for the laughter. uh, we need to think about social skills. We need to treat people with respect. We need to treat people with civility. That has sort of been lost in our society. We need to be okay disagreeing and having civil conversation, civil discourse. We need to be polite. You should always be kind. I don't think being kind is ever a bad choice. Ever, ever, ever. Stay out of judgment. So the funny thing about the girls is, the evaluation, the judgment, silly, silly stuff. Don't do that. Instead, you don't have to say everything you think too, just as a concept. So social skills are part of emotional intelligence too. So all of this, we spent a lot of time talking about emotional intelligence and what it is and some components of it. So these are all unique to human beings. All the people in this picture have emotions. The more we work on being self-aware, managing our own stuff, and regulating that, keeping it in check, keeping our ego in check, having empathy and understanding hard things, trying to be motivating, and working on having civility and politeness is all going to help us. And that's what a machine will never have. No artificial intelligence tool will ever have any of those things. So, why does any of this matter with artificial intelligence? Well, we need to leverage the emotional intelligence we have to work with AI. Now, people have a lot of fear. They have a lot of fear of change. I'm going to say that generally. So it looks like there's 30 people on the call. So out of the 30 of you, who would raise your hand up super high and say, "Oh my gosh, I love to change"? Anyone? Couple people. Good for you. Now I need to ask a follow-up question. Is that because the change was your idea? Because I don't really mind changes when I'm the one driving it. So most of us, if I were to just take a statistical poll, 28 of us are not raising our hands. We don't necessarily like changing, but change is fantastic once we know how to handle it and how to manage it a little bit better, right? So as we move to artificial intelligence, what are some things that you feel about artificial intelligence? Thoughts? What's your thought about using artificial intelligence in your work? Some things I've heard as this topic has been brought up is I am worried. I'm afraid that I won't have a job. I am afraid that AI will get everything wrong and it will make more work for me. I don't understand what this tool would do. I think it's going to create more problems than solve problems. Those are some things I've heard. So a lot of fear. So we're going to have to implement some emotional intelligence as we move through the change. And we're going to talk just a little bit about change management, another topic I'm passionate about. So also, we need to create some safety. And we're going to have to think about the ethical impacts of AI as business analysis professionals. So let's talk a little bit about this and certainly love to hear your thoughts and certainly things that you've experienced or challenges you've seen as your organization explores artificial intelligence tools and processes.
Yeah, so we have some great comments in the
Okay.
chat.
Okay.
Chuck is saying, I don't want AI to rise up against us. So there's been this another comment earlier about sentience and the idea that it could become out of control. Chris is saying it presents the possibility of a neutral third party in decision making. Nawaz, it is like I have a buddy now to talk to at all the time. Sometimes I listen, mostly I don't, to this new friend. And Gordon is saying it's useful, but worried it will get overused. And Irma's saying changes are scarce, but it is a learning, or scary probably, but it is a learning experience. And Sanjeev, I feel that AI is not going to replace humans, but humans with AI will replace humans without AI. So lots of
Ooh,
good thoughts and
yeah.
perspectives here.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you all for sharing those. All good things. Yeah, I have someone to talk to. That's funny too. Lots of things to consider as we move forward too. So making sure we're really, really confident. And I do think I love that comment about humans with AI will replace humans without AI. It's kind of like it's interesting. There are still segments of our population in this world that don't have a cell phone. And so we look at some of the different AI tools that are, two-factor authentication. They require that you have a cell phone to interact with technology. These people are getting left out, right? So that's another thing that came to mind. Let's talk a little bit about change. So some of you are very open to the concept of change. Change is an important aspect as we're moving into considering AI. So maybe I'll come do another presentation on change management because there's a whole thought process to how do you prepare an organization for change, considering the people and the impacts. So thinking about the fears. I mentioned, in my lifetime, the changes that I've seen, and it's not really fear is important, but how do I have an antidote to fear? Well, it's information. Once we understand, for example, why our organization needs to make a change, why we would be considering AI, and I can be part of that conversation and I can be part of that evaluation, my fears are going to be minimized. If you think about changes in your lifetime, when someone has bothered to ask, how does this impact you? This is going to date me too. Years and years ago, when I was very early in my business analysis career, I worked in a commercial real estate area of a large insurance company. And they were very dependent upon paper printed packets that were going to committees at very specific times of the day and week, where decisions were made on multiple $1 million of real estate investments for the corporation. Super important, high level, time critical. Well, someone at the organization had made a decision that we were going to get multifunctional printing devices. And some of you are like, I don't even know what that is now. Well, back in the day, copiers were just copiers. And then they introduced that they could fax and do digital copies and all this kind of stuff, all this multifunction stuff. Well, someone high up is a fairly large company, and someone high up had sold this idea of this equipment. And the day came where it got installed in our business area. And I don't even remember the details, but I will tell you that these committee books could not be printed with this machine for whatever reason. So as a business analysis professional, I had to write a business case for why we needed different equipment. And that experience is fascinating to me because no one bothered to ask the people that make the copies, what do you need? Doesn't that go back to Business Analysis 101? What are your basic needs? What problems are we trying to solve? The person selling these devices was looking at a bottom line of you'll get, so many costs per page per print. We'll have better service level agreements. It'll be cheaper all around the organization. Well, that time we had to outsource printing for a period of time until we got the right equipment. So when we think about people and emotional intelligence, are we actually thinking about talking to the people that do that job today so that we can understand, first of all, what that job is? And we can also understand how a change to their job with a different tool or technology will impact them, and how do we guide them through that change? It's super critical that we use our emotional intelligence when we're considering any artificial intelligence solution. So there's a book, and this would be a totally separate presentation to talk about the model that John Kotter has for change. So I'd recommend that you check this out. It's a short read. It's a little kind of a parable about some penguins and changes and how that impacts their lives and how we can think about it. But we have to bring people along the change journey. It's really, really important. So emotional intelligence is, first of all, recognizing, hey, there are people involved. And those people may not just be internal people. They could be our customers. How are our customers going to feel as we make some changes? I have a friend who works for a company. Des Moines has a lot of insurance companies. This insurance company is prepaid funeral insurance. So as they consider artificial intelligence, think about every single one of their customer when they have a claim. What's going on in their life? Do you think that they're going to want to have customer service? be voice automated? How detached will that be for a person who's dealing with a loss of a loved one? Probably not the best choice of when we use artificial intelligence in our systems and processes. These are the kinds of, and I would even say those are some ethical aspects that we need to be thinking about as well. Consider your performance reviews. What if your performance reviews were replaced by AI? Would you get a text message like this? We need to be sensitive to the systems and processes in our organization that should have an artificial intelligence component. Do you think that it's a good idea to have your performance review via text like this? How would that make you feel? Keep up, WRK. You might be thinking about that. I would say that's probably not one that we want to do. That gets into the should we do this? And I want you to think too about I love text messaging and I hate text messaging. It is the lowest form of communication we can have. There is so much room for error and misinterpretation where our emotions can get involved. Think about a text conversation that you had recently. Did it go well? Did you have to clarify a message a few times? Was there any misunderstanding? Would a phone call have cleared it up? Just the ability to have a conversation interactive with a human being. Same thing can be true of conversations with chatbots. How did those go? How do our customers feel about that? Being aware and applying your emotional intelligence skills to at least consider what that impact is and how that hurts or hinders people is pretty important. So think about the ethical implications of just because we could, should we? Is that the right choice on a human level? So, in conclusion, because we are so complex, each one of us individually, we bring so much to any kind of conversation. And if we rely on AI to try to understand that, it would be a mistake in our organizations. There are elements and times when AI is going to be a great tool to do maybe decision models, churning out decisions based on facts and information. Anything that involves another human being, I think we should be very careful about making sure we understand the impact and how a person will respond to that, and how we can be sensitive to their emotions when we're dealing with the changes that AI will bring. So it's never going to replicate human beings. Heck, each of us is probably thinking we don't even understand ourselves sometimes. We are very much a complicated mix of different things. So with that, I want to thank you. And remember, because we're all so complex, we should assume some positive intent. And kindness is always a good idea. You will never go wrong when you choose to respond to someone with kindness and seek to understand, try to have empathy for their situation, and try to manage your own emotions along the way. Always a good idea. So thank you so much